Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh. President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu are meeting at this hour. I don't know if it's on the agenda or not, but a story broke this morning. A Chinese Navy vessel attacked a German Air Force plane over the Red Sea using the laser earlier today. No follow-up yet. Byron York probably has the scoop. Are you all over this story, Byron?
I am not.
I thought maybe since you were the all-knowing, the all-saying Oz, it might have caught your attention. Byron, earlier in the program, Noah Rothman was on, and I asked him a couple of questions about China and their general 30,000-foot question. Do you worry much about China in a conflict with the United States?
Well, I think there's two questions there. One, do I worry about conflict breaking out between China and the United States? And two, if such a conflict broke out, do I worry about the United States' ability to prevail? And I don't worry as much about a conflict breaking out. I do worry about the unpredictability of the conflict. I know, there have been lots of reports during U.S. support for the Ukrainians that the United States was depleting all sorts of weapon stocks and sending them to the Ukraine. Now, these were not weapons that would likely be used in a conflict with China, but it did show how fast you can burn this stuff in a in a really hot conflict. So I've worried for a long time that the United States had basically let a lot of its readiness and its ability to fight a war quickly and decisively go down. And I know you've been talking about ships in the Navy for how long? A long time.
Oh, long time. Yeah.
Long time. So, I do worry about those.
I asked a couple of my retired Navy captain friends for a list of what the $157 billion in the One Big Beautiful Bill was going to be spent on. That's the defense dollop.
Yep.
And they didn't have a list. And so I would like a list. I also read this morning in News Items by John Ellis. I don't know if you get the newsletter, but I read it first thing in the morning. This comes from an MIT economist and geostrategist. We're in the midst of a totally different competition with China now that's much, much more important. Now we're not talking about commodity furniture and tube socks. We're talking about semiconductors and drones and aviation, electric vehicles, shipping, fusion power, quantum, AI, robotics. These are the sectors where the U.S. still maintains competitiveness, but they're extremely threatened. China's capacity for high-tech, low-cost, incredibly fast, innovative manufacturing is just unbelievable. And the Trump administration is basically fighting the war of 20 years ago. The loss of those jobs, was devastating to those places. It was not devastating to the U.S. economy as a whole. If we lose Boeing, GM, and Apple and Intel, and that's quite possible, then that will be economically devastating. The longer part is over at News Items. Now, that could be written by a TDS impacted academic. I don't know, but it seems like he's a qualified guy. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's a pretty smart observation, as a matter of fact. I mean, the controversy over Trump and tariffs has really been about we've got to get the United States more T-shirts. It's always been about theft of intellectual property, which is massive. All of the sort of things that the United States needs to keep itself healthy and defend itself. And you just listed a whole bunch of things that are in that category. I added keep ourselves healthy because we found ourselves when COVID broke out worried that we couldn't produce some really, really basic things like masks.
Yeah.
So these are real concerns. Certainly in terms of the medicines that we make, the electronics, the really cutting edge stuff that we make. We have to keep making that. Just like we have to be energy independent, we have to be able to keep making this stuff. Because if you're going to have a conflict with a really big country and the really big country happens to supply all the things that you need, you are vulnerable. I mean,
and the really big country turns out a lot of ships, and we don't. That's why I want to find out where the $157 billion go. I would like to open some new shipyards that produce rather low-cost, multiple design ships, as opposed to We got a frigate up in Wisconsin. It's a great frigate. The Navy's changed its specs 4 times in 10 years, and so it's behind schedule and costs a lot of money. It does it
Yeah.
every single time, Byron.
Yes, and we shouldn't be. We cannot make ourselves dependent on potential adversaries for the most basic things. Remember, years ago in the first Trump administration, Trump was telling Angela Merkel about the pipeline, the Russian gas pipeline, Nord Stream 2, now blown up, into to supply Germany. Don't do that. Do not do that. The Russians are not nice people. You do not want to be dependent on them to not freeze in the winter, because at some point they will cut you off and you'll freeze in the winter. So you have to. A great nation has to be independent, especially one with as many natural resources as the United States, has to be independent, and that's independent of China as well as anybody else.
Now, Byron, do you do a podcast? Are you in the podcast world yet?
I'm an occasional podcaster. I'm kind of a wandering podcaster. I haven't found my home yet.
You need to start doing one. I talked Ben Domenech into doing one a week, and it's great, and you ought to do one a week. But today I was listening to commentary, and Matt Continetti made a comment which I think is absolutely apropos. Trump and Netanyahu are not dissimilar from Reagan and Thatcher, who are not dissimilar from Churchill and FDR. They are the two leaders of the free world, and they act when acting is necessary. What do you make of the comparison?
I think it's a pretty good comparison, except, I think the struggles were greater, obviously, in World War II, and they were greater at the height of the Cold War. But I think in terms of the two leaders standing up for order and democracy, I think that's a pretty good comparison.
But I do think Netanyahu is on thin political ice. If I can keep you during the break, I'll talk to you about that, Byron York. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm going to talk to Byron during the break and bring him on the other side. One of those days where I'm taking everybody a little bit long, but that's just the cost of doing business during Dwayne's week off. I like to talk to my guests. He usually cuts them off. He doesn't like Byron at all, and he didn't know that. I'm sorry I told you that, Byron, but Dwayne just says, don't have Byron on. But I have him on. I'm going to keep him on. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned, America. So I'm back with Byron York. Byron, the Alliance of Tyrants has got 4 members in it: Russia, North Korea, Iran, and the superpower China. Iran just got crushed. North Korea can get off one nuke before it's destroyed, and Russia is bleeding out. Who would you rather be if you were betting from outer space on the West, which is the United States and Israel leading in the rest of the countries, or China's quartet of second-rate powers?
Who would I rather be? I'd rather be the United States in all this. More powerful, better long-run prospects, and actually right about things.
Do you think our political problems will resolve in time for that capacity to be fully developed? And by political problems, I mean Chuck Schumer said idiot things today. I'm not going to quote to you about West Texas and the floods. He's just a moron, and he runs one of the major parties. It just makes me crazy that we have morons running the Congress.
I think there's some terrible things going on in the Democratic Party. And have you discussed the Gallup polling on whether your people are extremely or very proud to be an American?
Yes, 92% Republicans say yes, 36% Democrats say no. Say yes.
But
36.
Go back 10 years. 2015, Obama is president. 80% of Democrats say they are very or extremely proud to be an American. Now that number of Democrats is 36%, less than half it was under Trump than what it was under Obama. Compare that to Republicans. 1990, 90% of Republicans say they are extremely or very proud to be Americans under Obama, and now under Trump, 92, virtually the same number. 92% say they are very or extremely proud to be Americans. There's a real difference in the parties here, in the very sort of basic structure of civic virtue and engagement, and that is pride and country. And Democrats, it's cut in half from what it was 10 years ago.
Byron, 37. What do you put that down to? MSNBC, TikTok, what?
Well, I mean, I think they've
that you've asked me a big question and said 30 seconds. I probably couldn't get it in 2 hours. I worry that this is the party that has often, blamed the United States for things in situations in which the United States was actually the good guy. So you've heard blame America first.
It's
I
cumulative.
think there are a number of people in the party who do that.
It's cumulative. Thank you, Byron York. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugh.